Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Collaborating with Project Partners and Using Bluebeam Review webinar. I appreciate you all coming out today. My name is Matt Beaumont. I'm a technical account manager here at Bluebeam. I'm joined today by Lilian Magallanes, who is also a technical account manager at Bluebeam. She'll be running the question and answer portion of this presentation. So if you do have questions, at any time, please feel free to type those in to the questions panel located on the GoToWebinar, and Lilian will be answering those as we go along. And we'll also leave a portion at the end of the presentation to also review your questions and provide answers there. So with that, a little bit of information about myself. I have 3.5 years experience here at Bluebeam. I originally studied architecture, and I most recently worked for a custom home builder where I actually was in a project management role, and I first used Bluebeam Review before fortunately joining the company 3.5 years ago. Lilian has even more experience than me. She's got 5.5 years experience at Bluebeam, so you're going to be in really good hands in the Q&A portion. All right, so let's get started. So today we're going to go tell you a little bit more about us and introduce you to Bluebeam Review and the capabilities we have for collaboration. In that part 3 you see there, we'll actually go into those specific benefits and features that will get us to allow you guys to more effectively collaborate with your project partners. And like I said, we'll also be showing you some additional resources that you can use to learn more and also answer questions further. So a little bit about Bluebeam. We have become AEC industry experts. We've now been doing this for over 15 years and really have taken a customer-focused development philosophy very seriously. We enjoy listening to our customers to create solutions that meet and anticipate your guys' needs. So we are advocates now for over 1 million users globally in over 130 countries. We've actually started industry advocacy now with 21 Bluebeam user groups throughout the world. And we're being used by 99% of the top US contractors. And what we're looking at now is over 4 million in collaborative transactions. So when we jump into review and start talking about our studio capabilities, those collaborative transactions will make a little bit more sense for you all today. So Bluebeam Review. So hopefully many of you are already familiar with this, and others are going to learn more and want to jump into it further. This is our desktop application. We also have apps on the iPad and can be used on other devices where you're going to be marking up, editing, and collaborating on your PDF documents. And the idea here is that you'll be able to increase revenue, reduce costs, and minimize risks by being more efficient with your project information. So we already have some real life examples. You saw the statistics just a moment ago of people that are using Bluebeam Review and Studio to become more efficient. So this is Ryan Companies, which is a GC here in the United States that has been using Bluebeam Review and Studio, and they have become the engine for driving this project forward and facilitating all communication between the GC, design team, and city regulatory group. We can easily send a 200-page set out to our internal team, let them mark it up, send it on to the architectural team for their comments, and then send submittals to the city. So we're going to look at those capabilities today, and you'll understand how this organization and your own organization can utilize those abilities. So collaborating with project partners using Bluebeam Review. Collaboration on a construction project is a complicated process. There's a lot of moving parts. Design or project teams are often really big. You have one half, the design team, that's creating the documents, that's then sending those documents over to the construction team for actual construction of the building. And there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of complications to those different relationships. So you can see the project team laid out here, but let's not forget that each of those teams have their own internal teams. And with that, they have their own internal processes for how they collaborate with each other and with other project partners. So some may be using things like Excel to track issues. Some may be using Word documents or other software. Some may be with ahead of the curve and using PDFs. Hopefully those are you guys shortly here. Others may still be using paper. And then we have others that may be using more verbal forms of communication. So everyone has their own process. They work in different ways. And with that, there's different inefficiencies that pop up. And this doesn't even take into account the numerous meetings, phone calls, and emails. So you can see that things can get pretty chaotic on a construction project. So the first thing that we would advise you to do is obviously consider what could go wrong, right? With this fragmented collaboration, that can lead to delays because you're going between different systems. Those types of things take time. You can lose information between those different systems. It's like playing a long game of telephone, right? The information changes when it changes hands, right? There's redundant work. When you have to input information into multiple systems, that's just doing the same work over again. And this overall leads to confusion. And with that, your whole project's going to suffer. You're going to see decreased productivity. You're going to see decreased predictability, not knowing how that information can lead to problems down the road. And eventually you'll also have increased risk of things going wrong on your project. So what should we do about it? Well, first, you should get on the same page. With Bluebeam Review, we advise on using the PDF file format, and that's because it is a universal file format and it has versatile capabilities. I think if you ask most people what a PDF is, they just think of it as a digital piece of paper. And while that's true to an extent, there's actually quite a bit more that it can do. We here at Bluebeam like to think of a PDF as a container, and that container stores things like metadata about your project. It contains things like hyperlinks, which makes it easier to navigate your project. It contains bookmarks, file attachments, images, and spaces. So spaces are things that designate an area of the page for specific use in the project. So we'll get into that more later. But there's a lot there behind the PDF. So when you are speaking the same language and using the same document type, it's easy to transfer information from one project partner to the other. So in this example here, if you want to get notes on, let's say, construction documents, an architect can send out a PDF. And because it is a universal file format, everyone else can view this PDF, and they can also edit it, mark it up as they need to. So they can review these drawings, add any comments that they may need to, and then send them back to the architect, who can then easily compile those those markups and those comments into one master document. Now we're already seeing that this can be a lot more efficient process than people using different systems to communicate and using that kind of redundant work. If it's all in one place, we can easily create reports out of those marked up PDFs. We can easily import those into one master file. And then you're no longer transferring data between the different file types. So your overall process is already more efficient. And then there's also less risk. Because the feedback is centralized in one location, you're able to improve coordination that much more easily because it's all in one spot. Now, the process that I just showed you of sending out a copy of a PDF, having people mark them up independently and send it back, it still has some inefficiencies. While better than before, there's still inefficiencies. For example, you still have to review and mark up multiple copies of the same document, right? Each party has their own copy of the file. So that means that they are kind of working in isolation. So you can see my last bullet point there. So you don't really see what other people are doing. You're also tracking down people who may not have commented on or they're behind their deadline. So everyone's working independently. And while it is easy to combine those into one master document once you receive them, it's still an overall process, right? And this still runs some risks. There's still a lot of documents to keep track of. And it's also difficult to know if others received or noticed relevant feedback. So today we're going to take things a step further. We're going to look at real-time collaboration using Bluebeam Review and Studio. And the idea behind this is to have all your project partners collaborating on one central set of PDF files. So the communication is back and forth through a centralized location so everyone can see what the others are doing. And that, we believe, leads to a lot happier project team. So with that, I'm going to jump into Studio Sessions. And this is the first half of Studio that I'm going to talk about today. And Studio Sessions is a cloud-based capability within Review that allows teams to review documents and collaborate in real time. So with that, let me jump into Review. I'm actually in Review right now going through my slides. So the first thing we want to do is we want to navigate to Studio. Hopefully some of you are already familiar with Studio and what you can do with it. But if you want to get to Studio, some of you may have this kind of house-looking icon over on the left side. That is your Studio button. If you do not see this in Review 2018, you can right-click and go to Show, and you'll have a list of different panels that you can open up, and you can see Studio there. The default keyboard shortcut is also Alt-C if you want to get to that panel. If you're an older version of Review, 2017 or earlier, you should have a command bar along the top which has a blue Studio icon. So it's going to be the same image but in blue, and that's where you can access Studio as well. So let me just open that up. So you can see that my left panel has opened here. I can sign in here. So this is cloud-based, so it is something that I have to log into to get on the internet. If you do not have a Studio account, you can go to the sign-in page here, and when the dialog box opens up, you'll see a link here to create an account. So a Studio account is just tied to an email address. You can set this up independently of your licensed version of Review. It's not tied to that seat. That means that you can also access your Studio account from other devices, not just your Review desktop application. Okay, so I'm going to log into Studio here. Okay, and you can see here I'm in Studio. You'll see two buttons along the top. This is my Projects tab here. If I click on that, you'll see that changes. And then I have my sessions to the right. Projects I'll be covering towards the end of this presentation, but let's first start with sessions. In sessions, you can see a variety of, well, different sessions that I have. Some of these are ones that I've created, and others are ones that I've been invited to. If I want to filter my list, I can go to the filter button here, click on it, and filter and sort these to see which ones are which. If I want to start a new session, I can click this plus button, and you see I have two options. I can create a new session, or I can join one where I then type in the 9-digit code to get into it. So let me just show you what it looks like to start a new session. When you go to start a new session, you can give it a file name, a session name. You can add existing PDF files. So sessions is relegated only to the PDF file type because it is a markup and collaboration portal. You're going to be marking up on PDF files, and this is where you can upload them. The absolute limit on the number of files that you can have in a Studio session is 5,000. And each one of those files can be upwards of 1 gig in size. Those are the upper limits. At the end of the presentation, I'll be highlighting some information on our website about Studio best practices. So depending on how you use sessions, you may want to vary how many files you put in there to enhance the performance as much as you can. So this is where you would add those files. You can set up permissions for the session. So let's say you want people only to view files. You can turn off the ability to mark up those files. You can turn off the ability to save them locally or even print them as well. You can restrict attendees by email address. So if I were to uncheck this and create a session, anyone that has that 9-digit code would be able to enter and jump into the session. But instead, I'm going to restrict it by attendees. And I can also set my session to expire. So that means if, let's say we have a tight deadline and I need comments back by Friday at 5, I can set the session to expire then at 5 o'clock, and basically people will not be able to get into the session after that. The session will close down, it will finish, and I can take a record of that information. So it's one way that we can hold our project collaborators kind of accountable and make sure that we get the information that we need. So I'm not going to start a new session here. I'm actually going to jump into an existing session and jump into here and show you what that looks like. Okay, so we have jumped into a new session. So I'm actually opening up a file right now that's already in the session. It's asking me to look at the layers, so I'm just going to click no, and I'm loading a document. Okay, so this is the session panel once I'm in that session. You can see here up top I have a list of my attendees. So I have invited quite a few colleagues, just 5 or so. You can even see Lillian's in there as well. She'll be joining us in a moment. My name is in bold because I'm currently logged into this studio session while others are offline. I can have, oh, there's Lillian. We can actually have upwards of 500 collaborators in one session. So that's 500 attendees in there. Again, refer to the Studio best practices for how you may want to set those up to make sure you're getting the best performance possible. I don't think we've ever seen 501 session, but I know some customers have gotten quite a few. So definitely take a look at that. Here below, I have my different PDF files. I just have 3. I should mention that these don't have to be single file PDFs. They can be multi-page PDFs, and if those hyperlinks are in those multi-page PDFs, you can navigate within the files. You won't be able to navigate using hyperlinks to different files in the session. But you can have quite a few, like I said, 5,000 PDFs. And then down below, we have a record of all the activity that's going on in this studio session. So I can see when someone joins the session. I can see when someone adds a markup. For instance, my colleague Amanda added a note in there as well. And I can go through that. So there's a lot of record keeping, a lot of tracking, and a lot of accountability because I have this record ability. Down below, you'll see a little filter button. I can actually filter this record. So let's say I want to ignore all the times that people entered and left the session. I can click filter, and I can only see their markups or what have you. So there's options for seeing that. I should also mention with the documents that you can add more documents. You don't have to do it all at once. You can add more as you go and take ones out. Down below also in the record is I have a chat bar. So I'm just going to go down the bottom. And you can see Lily has already been using that. So I'm just going to say hi to her. If you're collaborating in real time, that means you could be chatting back and forth about the project, or obviously just keeping up some nice camaraderie among the project collaborators. Okay, so let's now shift gears and look at actually marking up our PDFs. I hope many of you have already been using Review to mark up your PDF tools, or excuse me, your PDF documents. So you'll be using our markup tools. For those that aren't familiar with our markup tools, you can get to those by either going to the top here, and you'll go to Tools, and there's some markup options here. We have a variety of other tools such as taking measurements, applying stamps, all sorts of things, so definitely explore those. Also, depending on what we call a profile, so a saved interface in Review, you may have some toolbars with your markup tools along the side as well. But in this case, I'm just going to go up to Tools and Markup, and we can do a variety of things here. Now, I've actually set up this session beforehand. Knowing who I'm going to collaborate with, there's some things that I can do to make sure that people are best prepared and we can stay coordinated throughout this process. One of the things that I did in this case is I distributed out tool sets for my collaborators to use. So if I look up at the top of the PDF, you can see here I have 3 file attachments. And if you remember at the beginning of the presentation, I said with PDFs, they're containers. They can hold other files. So what I did was I actually attached different Bluebeam tool sets to the PDF, and I designated one for each different type of role that I'll be collaborating with. So we have one for architects, contractors, and engineers. Now, what I want to do is I want to be able to take these tool sets and add them to my tool chest. And to do that, all I have to do is double click on the actual file, and Review will ask me if I want to add it or open it. I'll click open. I did already have this tool set in my tool chest, but I'm just going to override it. And you can see that I've successfully imported the tool set. To access that tool set, I'm just going to go over to my tool chest. So that's another icon that you see on the left-hand panel. And here I can open up my tool chest. Now, just a quick definition of what the tool chest is. A tool chest is where I can store my custom-made tools so I can access them more easily. Now, you see that I attached them to this PDF before, so that means I can actually export these different tool sets and share them with others. That makes my coordination a lot easier, knowing that people are using the same tools and kind of speaking the same language in a way. Now, if I scroll down, you'll see there's that engineering review tool set, and I can start using these to mark up my PDF. So I'm just going to use the call out, and we'll take a look at these drawings here. I'm the engineer, so I have to think of something clever to write on here for you guys. I'm not that clever, so this one corner drives me nuts, so I always like to point at that and say, not the most engineering-like comment, but you get the point there. So now, right now, it looks like I may have lost connection. Interesting. No, I don't know why there we go. Sorry, there's a little red circle in there. That just lets you know that the markup hasn't been made live in the session yet. It just had to be uploaded. So I wasn't sure if I lost connection. Okay, make corner square. Well, I see that this corner here is in the same condition. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to move this comment. This is a little tips and trick of using Review. Is I'm going to right click on the markup, this callout markup, and there's the ability to add a leader line here. So if I do that, I can actually add a second arrow, and then I can point to that same condition in a different location. A lot of people don't know about that. They end up taking an arrow markup and clicking and adding it somewhere else. Those are 2 different markups. So while it looks good on the page, it's treated differently by the PDF. So little trick, right click, add leader line, and you can add more leaders. So that really comes in handy there. Okay, what else do we have here? Let's do over here. Again, I'm not that clever, so I'm just going to add some generic comments in there just so you guys can see how this would work. And I'll say, add window into the copy room. Now, if you're not familiar with Review 2018, I will point out that we do have this properties toolbar now along the top side. So if you want to change colors, create new custom tools, you could do that up here when you have your markup selected. So definitely like to point that out. It's a great time-saving feature in Review 2018. So while I'm making those markups, let's see what other activities going on in the page. So we'll see if Lily has made any new markups, and we can see that happen in real time. She may also be asking or answering questions as this is going on. So we're keeping her busy here. And if I go into my Studio tab, I can see what that activity is. So looks like, yeah, there you go. In the chat, Lilia said, yes, I've been answering questions. So she's really busy. So let's see if she can add a couple markups here. In the meantime, I can show you in the record here, if I find someone that has made a markup, and I'll scroll up, what we can do is we can actually click on those, and it will take us to those markups. So this is actually a really great navigation thing, where if we navigation feature. So if we're able to see someone mark something up, we can click on it, and it will take us to that location really easily. Now you'll notice I clicked on my colleague Michael's markup, and you'll notice that all these little nodes are grayed out. Now this is an important feature of Sessions. While with a regular PDF outside of Sessions that you're just editing regularly, you can edit someone else's markups most of the time. But in this case, in a session, you are unable to move, delete, change the nodes or colors on someone else's markup. So you can't change someone else's markup. The reason for that is it's a built-in accountability feature where we don't want accidents to happen and information's lost because someone accidentally moved something or deleted something. So please be cognizant of that you'll only be able to mark up or change your own markups. Now, while I'm in this session, you'll notice that this bar here keeps flashing. So that's just letting me know that activity has been occurring. And you can see that Lily has been making some markups. So you can see that there. It continues to flash. And she's also alerted me to a markup. So there's something important that she wants me to see. So if there's a flash there, what you can do is you can go to notifications, and you can see that there's actually quite a bit of work that I need to be more cognizant of. So my colleague Amanda's alerted me, and Lily's alerted me to a couple here. So let me click on the first one, and you can see that it took me into this cloud here. Remove storage room and add changing station. Okay, so this is an urgent matter that Lil has let me know about. And what that means is because that flashed for me, I can get to that right away. I don't have to, she doesn't have to wait for me to log in and comb through the files and find that comment. If this is an urgent matter, I can look at it right away. And what I can do is I'm actually going to open up my markups list, and I'll click on that, and it'll take me to that. So for those that aren't familiar with the markups list, this is a built-in tracking tool in Review. So it works outside of Sessions with any PDF. Basically, any information that's put on the PDF itself is being tracked in our markups list. So any comments, measurements, images, anything really is being tracked down below. And I can see that information. And there's a lot of capabilities down here as well. So what I can do is, for this particular one, if I want to remove the storage room, I'm just going to reply to that and just say, I'll just say will do, to be issued with revised drawings, just so she knows that it will be addressed. And you can see in my markups list under that comment is that reply. Now, let me show you quickly how to alert an attendee. So let's find out one of my markups here. If I want to alert Lil to this, I'm just going to right click, and I can go alert attendee and then choose. You can see here are the other people that have been invited to my session here, but I'm just going to click Lillian there. And what's going to happen is, just like with mine, this will flash for her if she's in there, and she can click on notifications, click that, and we'll send her directly to this location. Now you'll notice that not everyone is online in this session. So what if I alert someone that's not online? Well, they're actually going to get an email. And in that email, it will say that you've been alerted to a markup in the studio session. And there will be a hyperlink in there where they can click and easily jump into the session. So really quick way to let someone know of urgent issues and really cut down on that timeline of communication. So we're seeing this in a lot of different ways, obviously in design review if there is an important matter, but also people are using this on site. So they're also identifying field issues, whether that's during the punch process or just in the middle of construction, where if they're on site, they see something urgent, they can alert an attendee of the session to that so they can adjust and address the issue as quickly as possible. Okay, so next, quite a bit we can do. I want to return briefly to that markups list that you saw. Now you'll see that Lil has actually set some statuses for this. So I alerted to her and she said, no, we're rejecting that status. She likes these awkward corners. Maybe she has a cool light feature or something behind it that will really make it pop. I don't know. She's going to reply and probably tell me as we're on this webinar. So I respect that, but I'm going to take a look at a few other of these markups here. So here's one, remove wall to expand storage. I can double click in there and set a status and say completed. How about that one that I replied to earlier? Let's say that's already been done. We can say accepted here and completed here. And I'm actually going to set another status. And I'll show you what happens when I do that. You'll see that actually there's two statuses and the bottom one is the most up to date. So with that status column, I'll make that a little bigger, it's going to keep a running track record. So if accidents do happen, you can go back and see what was occurring previously, and it will give you a timestamp of when those things were set. Just like with other PDFs outside of sessions, you can create PDF summaries of this, which will print out a report of this information. So you can do that from the session if you'd like, if you need a more tangible report that's in a file format other than this markups list. So PDF summaries are an important capability of review. I recommend jumping into those when you have the chance. Okay, also in sessions is the ability to follow someone. So this is a little weird, this next feature. I actually call this the NSA feature of Studio Sessions because it gets a little creepy. So what you can do is you can actually follow another attendee. So if I hover over Lily, you'll see here that there's a follow attendee button. So that person with a check mark. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to see what she's doing. So I'm taking my hands off the mouse and you'll see that there's an orange kind of crosshairs. That is an indicator of where her mouse cursor is. And as it zooms around, I'm seeing what she's seeing. Now I joke that it's a creepy feature that allows you to follow people. She knows that I'm following her right now. She is alerted to that, so it's not a secret thing. But it's also a really great presentation tool, right? So if I'm on the phone with her, she can say, hey, I want to show you something important. Just follow me and I'll kind of point things out. So it's really easy for her to communicate that information to me. So you can see here, while I'm following her, she did quite a bit of work. So she added a cloud down below there. And she also added that stamp. And all I need to do is just click to click out so I'm no longer following her and I can see those there. Okay, so a lot of things that I can do in there. If I go back to the sessions panel, I want to point out a few other things. We have a pending tab here. If I go to the pending tab, it says no activity. This pending tab is for when I go offline. So basically, many of you may be using a session to, like I said, track field progress or something like that. And you may be going on site where you don't have the best job site connectivity. Well, what you can do is you can open up the session before you go on site, and then you can work offline. And when you do that, basically the file will still be open on your machine. You can add markups to that file, and they'll all be added to this pending queue. And when it's added to the pending queue and you're reconnected, then those comments and markups will sync back to the session for others to see it. So just to let you know that those capabilities are available to you as well. Okay, next thing I want to show you is being able to set up permissions in a studio session. So knowing that maybe not all your attendees are going to be using the session for the same reason, you can adjust the permissions that they have and prevent them from doing certain things however you'd like. So to do that, oops, I lost my permissions here. Where did I go? Did I lose my thing? No. And here's my attendee access. I'm just kind of lost my place a little bit. Oh, excuse me. So I went to this dropdown. I was looking for this dropdown. Sorry about that. So if you click on the dropdown for the session number, you can change the settings for the session. And then that will bring up a new dialog box. You can change, if there's an expiration date, if you need to bump it out a week, if things are already falling behind schedule. You can go to attendees where you can add more people. And then you can also set permissions. So if you want, you can set permissions for all your attendees or add specific individual users and say, hey, I don't want this one person to be able to print or save and things like that. You can also add specific groups that share permissions. So if you have a specific external collaborator, a specific firm that you say, hey, I don't want them to be able to save or print these things. I just want them to mark it up. You can do that for the whole group and add any of their individual members to that group. Cool. Lastly, in studio sessions, if I want to leave the session, I can go up to this button. That's like a door with an arrow going out. The button to the side is Finish Session. Now, if I click and Finish Session, that will shut down the session for everyone. So if I want to continue working or let everyone else continue working while I go offline, I just want to leave then. I don't want to finish it and close it out for everyone. If I want to report on the activity already occurring in this session, what I can do is I can go down to this kind of menu looking button down next to chat, click on that, and I have a variety of options for things that I can do here. I can print out this record summary. I can save that. I could do a PDF package report. So a PDF package report it's really a PDF file that contains other PDFs. And so I can take out a copy of each of these files. I can do a combined files report as well and make notes and things like that for each report. So let me just show you what this will look like. So I'm going to do a PDF package report. And it's going to ask me to save it. Now you can see how messy my folders are. And you can see there's the PDF package report. And you can see here's the report of all this studio activity. So I'm just going to double click on that, open it up. So this is the same thing as what I have in the session. So if I want a more permanent record of all this, of my session in progress, I can create that record report. You can see those attendees and the documents that are included. I can also look at these files. So these are now copies of the files that are living in the session. So these are now local copies contained in this PDF package. So just be aware of that. So if I do need to take kind of a status report of where we're at in the session, I can do that there. So I'm sure you have plenty of questions. We're going to switch gears now, but if you have more questions for Lily, feel free to type those into the questions panel there. And with that, let's switch gears and start talking about projects. So I went through sessions. The next half, it's not going to the next one. There we go. Nope, that just jumped. I'm sorry about that, folks. Also a good way to navigate review. I have a blank PDF, blank page. There we go. It's just taking a little while to render there. That was a little funny. I think jumping out of sessions so quickly kind of made my internet skip it. So next half is studio projects. Now, studio sessions was our real-time collaboration where you have everyone in the same files simultaneously. Now, the other half of Studio is Studio Projects, and this is our cloud-based single centralized location to store documents within Review. So this is where you can store your project files. So this doesn't have to be just PDFs. I mentioned with Sessions that you can mark up only PDFs. Projects, on the other hand, are all your project documents. So with that, let's jump in to projects. So I have my Studio Sessions tab open here on the right side. I'm just going to switch over to projects here. Again, with Sessions, I can also filter my list for the ones that I've created and also the ones that I've attended. I can also sort by when they were created and things like that. If I want to create a new project, I'll go to the plus symbol and do a new project just like I did with Sessions, or I can join an existing one using that 9-digit code. But again, in this for this presentation, I'm just going to jump into an existing project. Now you'll see, and I don't want to split this. Oops. Just going to move this over so you can see the project a little bit more clearly. So here's the project. So if you've used Studio Projects in the past with versions 2017 and earlier, this is going to look a lot different. So previously with projects, this Studio panel opened up your projects file tree. Now it's opened kind of in the PDF viewing area. And that actually allows us to do a few things. It allows us, if we look at our PDFs, to see thumbnail previews of our PDFs. So it's a lot easier to get to the PDFs that we want more quickly. In this kind of area where we're seeing the viewing, many of you may have a lot of files in the project. We can switch it from thumbnail mode to list mode, so you can quickly sort through your different PDFs. Now, I mentioned with Sessions that we have an upper limit of 5,000 PDFs in one session. Well, there's no limits for projects. So there's no designated limit. You can have as many files in there as you want. Again, I would say check out our Studio Best Practices link, which we'll be sending out at the end, to gauge what's best for you and the performance that you need. So you can see here I have a bunch of PDFs. If I go back, I can see here I have a variety of different folders as well. And you can see it's actually using a folder tree. Now, I uploaded these files directly from Windows, so it kept my Windows Explorer file tree. So it was really easy to organize them. And you can see I have different types of files. So here's an Excel file. Here's some more PDFs. If I go down to images, you'll see that I have JPEGs in there as well. Now, if I double click and open this JPEG, what it's going to do is it's actually going to open it in its native application. So it's not completely reliant on Review. You can still access files from other programs and edit them there. Also, quite a bit, because I have quite a few files in here, one thing I can do is I can actually right-click and say Hide Files and just look at my folder specifically. So a little bit easier to navigate now. Things that I'm going to actually show those files. If I want to continue to add files, we have a variety of options. I can just create a new blank folder where I can put files in. I can upload existing files from my machine. I can upload entire folders. And also with Review 2018, I can actually drag and drop files from my Windows Explorer directly into the project. So I don't have to go through the process of clicking upload files, navigating to the files and doing that. I can just do a drag and drop, which makes it a lot easier for folks. Okay, so let's look at how we can edit these files. So if I go back to my sheets, my drawing sheets here, let's say I want to modify this first floor plan that I have here. Well, if I just double click on the file, it will open up the PDF. And when it does that, you'll notice in the File Access tab along the top, you'll see that it's locked. And basically what that means is I can't edit this right now. It's just opened read-only. Basically, it's just for viewing files right now. And that's because I just double-clicked on it out of the project. Well, what I'm going to do is, actually, I'm going to get rid of that. Excuse me. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I can click up here and say check out file. And I need to check it out in order to mark it up. And you can see on the right side that my markup tool is unlocked for me. I'm going to go back to my tool chest to use my tools, and I can use that. And now I can start marking this up. So easy enough. This is the big difference between this, obviously, and Sessions is I'm the only one marking up these files right now. If I check out the file from a project PDF, only I can edit it. So only one user can edit it at a time. Now I have a few options when I'm done. What I can do is I can go back up to this icon and I can do a couple things. I can update the server copy. So let's say I wanted to continue to work and I still want the ability to edit the file, but I want other people to see the work that I've done so far. I can go to update server copy. Or let's say I didn't actually like the work that I did at all. I can undo that checkout and that will remove the markup that I had up to that point. Or I can check in the file. So that will allow people to see my changes and check it out on their own so they can provide edits of their own. So in this case, I'm just going to undo the checkout. If I go back to my project, you can see that the file is locked because someone has it open, but it's still available for checkout. I'm going to go here. There's quite a bit of options that you have in a Studio project. You can also send share links. So if you want to make sure that people get the file quickly, you can right-click on the file and go to share. And basically that will allow you to send the file via email and they can download it via email. So there's a lot of ways to do that. If I right-click on the file, you can also see that I have an option to add to new session. What that means is if I have my files stored in a Studio project, I can check them out of a project to be used in a session. And that means if they're now in a session, I can invite multiple people then to mark them up and edit them. So basically, the project holds on to the files. They live in the project, but they can then be used in the session, marked up. And when those session is finished, it checks it back into the project for people to see those edits. So you can still take advantage of the capabilities of Sessions, even though your file lives in a project. We also keep a revision history of the PDF. So this is a new project, so you won't see much here. But if a lot of people are checking it in and out, making markups, we're going to keep track of all those things. And you'll actually be able to go back, and you can read it here. It says open revision, and you can see those previous versions of the file. So if anyone added pages, added markups to it, they could go in and we can go and see those different versions of it. We can even restore a revision if something went wrong along the way. We can go back and make corrections. So a lot of capabilities within Studio projects to collaborate. Just like we did with Sessions, we can also set permissions. We can invite users. Now, I said previously with Sessions that you have a limit of 500 people. We don't have a limit on projects. You can have as many users in there as you'd like. And again, you can set permissions for those users. So what they can do with files, what information they can access, if they can invite other people. But we also have this other tab, folder permissions. So you saw here, and I'll cancel out of this just so you can see it a little more clearly. We have different folders, and different folders contain different information. So what we may want to do is we may want to prevent people from seeing certain folders. So let's say I invite my lawyer to view the contract documents, but I don't necessarily want to show them the drawings and bog them down with other information that's not relevant to them. What I can do is I can just make those other folders hidden. So I can hide them, I can just make them read write, and I could do those things depending on what kind of information I want them to access and what kind of information I want them to be able to edit. So that's available as well. Cool. So I could have emailed users from that user access tab. I also have this envelope that I can invite more users from too. So lastly, with 2018, you can also have multiple studio projects open. So depending on if one's an external project and another is a internal one, you can actually have 2 projects open at the same time and flip in between those. So that's available as well. Cool. So with that, I'm going to jump back into my presentation. Please direct any additional questions you may have to Lillian. And let's talk briefly about how people are actually using and what kind of results they're seeing from using Review in Studio. So in this example, Canon Design and NEUF were working on a large hospital project in Montreal. And what they saw was that they were actually able to complete their approvals on average 80% faster by using the tools within Review in Studio. For instance, the quote we have here is, they created a repeatable process for managing 5,900 pages using Review's customizable tools and Studio for multiple consultants to collaborate concurrently. So in that case, I would assume they're actually using multiple sessions. I should have mentioned that earlier, that you aren't stuck with just one session at a time. You saw I had a longer list there. You can have as many sessions and projects as you want. In this case, Helson Moran was able to increase productivity by 60% because they were able to communicate so much faster. They conducted real-time digital collaboration review sessions across the UK and the Middle East. So this is not relegated to just the United States. You can use this internationally, which obviously makes things a lot faster rather than sending emails and waiting for the time differences and things like that. So just briefly, we're seeing Studio used throughout the project lifecycle, whether that's in design review with the design team reviewing documents throughout and building on the design, then moving into construction when they're collaborating with the construction team and understanding how this kind of building is going to be built, through field issues and shop drawing review, submittal review, RFIs. All the way through punch and back check where they're going and on-site and documenting reviews. So a lot of capabilities and a lot of ability, a lot of places that you can use it during the construction process. So I mentioned at the beginning that we have those best practices on our website. There are some other additional Studio resources that I recommend you take a look at. We have one called How Do I Collaborate in Bluebeam Studio with Teammates That Don't Own Review? So I mentioned that the Studio account is tied to your email address, not your license of Review. So basically what they can do is they can download Review, use it in view mode, which doesn't require a license, and they can create a Studio account and still get into a session and mark up like others. So read that article to find out how to set that up. And then lastly, what can I do with Studio sessions that I may not already know? So what we're going to do is we're going to type in the links to these articles. I definitely recommend you take a look at those to better understand the capabilities of Studio. We also have a variety of other training options for you. So we have a ton of free training videos on our website and additional pre-recorded webinars. We also have self-guided online training courses and instructor-led training sessions that are available to you. So please visit bluebeam.com/training to see those options and what they can do for you. And also take a look at our communities page, so bluebeam.com/communities, to see if there's any local user groups. These are phenomenal resources. I've been able to attend quite a few, and I gotta say, I'm always impressed with the level of work that people are using Bluebeam Review with and the things that they're coming up with to meet their project needs. So it's a really great way to see how Review and Studio are being used. It's also a great way to learn about new industry trends and best practices and meet other AEC professionals. So please go to that website to see if there's any by you. And if you'd like to start one, definitely reach out to Bluebeam and we'd be happy to talk about that more. So with that, if you guys have any additional questions, please type those into the question and answer area. I can see Lillian is frantically typing in there to catch up. I'll be helping her out here shortly. And with that, thank you very much for attending this webinar. We will stay on the line for the next few minutes to answer those questions. But again, thank you for taking the time. And yeah, have a great day. Okay, so we're going to do like a encore presentation here. We had a great question about how to remove files from a session. So I'm going to jump back in here, go back into my session. Let me close out of my project here. Yes. I'm going to go back into my session. No, don't worry about this. So let's say I want to remove this. So you can see here there's an X here. There should be a red X if you're in version prior to 2018. I can also right click and go to delete. So if you do not see this, you may not be the creator or administrator on the session. So you may want to talk to that admin to see if that's a permission you can have set up for you. So only admins can remove files from the session. So cool. So I hope that was what you guys were looking for. Okay, so with that, we are going to wrap up here. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. And oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, someone just said you can't see my screen. Okay, one more time. Let me show my screen. There we go. My mistake. I'm just going to go into the session. Again, there's going to be an X next to you where your documents are listed, or you can right click and go to delete. If you do not see that, you may not have permission to remove files, so you may want to talk to your the creator of the session or the admin on the session. Okay, thank you very much. And okay, and we're going to end the session now. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. And that concludes our work today.